Took a while. You know, we don't become a convert one day and then the next day we're not. You know, it's an ongoing way of growing. Transformation is something that happens from the inside out. And it's based on a knowledge that God is God and I am not. We are all God's children, sons, and daughters. We all have the same Father in heaven. We can cry out, Abba, Father, all of us. Until we get to that point in our lives, until we let that happen. It's not about making it happen. That's why I didn't title this, Make It Happen. Because God already made it happen when He gave us a heart like His. We're made in the image and likeness of God. God is love. We were made that way. So we don't have to make it happen. We have to let it happen. We have to get rid of our weird feeling that somehow or another we have to fend for ourselves. We have to prove ourselves. We have to promote ourselves if we want to be safety, if we want to be safe and secure in life. Because we want things, and we want them now, and we want to belong, we want everybody to accept us, we want to be famous, we want to have possessions, we want to do everything to build ourselves up. But God already builds us up. If we use the gifts that God gave us, and if we accept the reality that whether I'm 5'5" or whether I'm 6'2", that doesn't make me any worse than anybody else. If I'm bald, that doesn't make me any worse than anybody else. It makes me different, but it doesn't make me any worse. Goodness comes in all ways and shapes and sizes and colors and languages. Goodness is there. It's all around us. And until we get to the point where we can look out, as Francis did, and see that God is good, and therefore God's creation is good, and therefore it's beautiful, and it's there for a purpose. A lot of times we struggle with this whole image of ourselves because we're struggling to find, why am I here? What is my life all about? What's in it for me? How am I going to succeed? How am I going to become known? How am I going to get to the point where I'm perfect? I'll talk about that a little bit later on. Talk about that. Father Richard Rohr had a series of meditations, most recently this past week, on St. Teresa, the little flower, and about her simple way of perfection. It's the way of imperfection, the spirituality of imperfection. Until we can get to that point where we don't have to be perfect. We grew up thinking that we had to be perfect. I grew up thinking that I had to be number one in school. I had to be the top of the class, otherwise I wasn't important to my family. I wasn't important to anybody else unless you're number one. You ever get that feeling at times? You got to be on top. That's the way of the world. Got to be on top. You got $1 million? But yeah, I need $1 million more. Or two. I got 2 cars, but oh, you never know when they're going to go out and need to be 3 or 4 more cars. Or I have nothing to wear. Did you ever say that? I can't go to, I have nothing to wear. Look in your closet. Nothing to wear. I'm off track. Where was I? I don't know where I was. Who?
You wanted to be number one.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever want to be number one? I did. Many times. And if I wasn't number one, I disliked the person who was number one. And instead, I could have looked at that person and said, there's the child of God, there's my brother, there's my sister, they're succeeding. Praise be the Lord. I'd like to get to that point where I don't live in a world of competition and comparison. Because what does it do? It divides us. Competition, comparison, it divides us. It separates us. That's sin. And we live in a world of comparison and competition. And we need to get to a point, I believe, and I'm trying to get there, to a point where I can live a life of contemplation instead of competition and comparison. Because when we get to be contemplative persons, everything changes in our lives. In fact, I want to go back to something that I probably forgot to even say at the beginning. And, one of the ways I can summarize what I'm saying here today is by saying it the way our order tells us, friars, to be. To be contemplative, to be living in community, and to be in mission. To be contemplative, I'll get into that, because I believe that all of us here are called to be contemplatives. Another way of saying it, and you won't like it this way, we're all called to be mystics. We're all called to live with mystery and to live in the cloud of unknowing, whereby we meet God, who is the all-knowing one, and we're content, and we find it best to be the unknowing person. In fact, Richard Moore would like to say, a lot of times, growing up and getting educated means to unlearn. We got to unlearn what we think we know. Because when we think we know everything, we don't learn anymore. And we get into fight with everybody else who doesn't think the same way we do. So, we need to be contemplative. People who are with templum, with God, with the temple. If we can learn to be contemplative persons, if we can learn to live with mystery and live within the cloud, where God in the Old Testament is described as meeting God, it's always in a cloud. It's in a cloud. That's how God made himself present to his people. God led the people by a cloud through the desert. They didn't know where they were going, but they followed the cloud. They followed God. If we can be people who are living with mystery, within mystery, instead of trying to solve every problem. We try to solve problems. We don't try to accept the problem. The problem is that we're human beings. And we're wounded, and we're weak. And we have a lot of imperfection in us, but that's all right. God made us who we are to be. And we're good. Every one of us in here. But that reminds me of one more thing. That reminds me of a statement in Matthew's Gospels, where Jesus says to his disciples, "The harvest is great, but the laborers are few." I find it a little bit difficult to accept that totally. I know what Jesus meant, I think. But look at all of us here. We're all laborers in the vineyard. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today, right? We wouldn't be sitting here instead of being outside in the cool weather and listening to me. But you decided, I want to be a person who walks in the footsteps of one of the greatest preachers of all time, St. Francis of Assisi, who actually did more than he spoke. You know, go out and preach the gospel and use words if necessary. But here we are. We're laborers in the vineyard. We're workers in the harvest. You and I, every one of us, in her or his own way. That's why we're making time to be here, to be with one another, because we learn from one another as well as learning with one another. We're here because we need to take some time to contemplate, to think with God, to be with God, to turn our ideologies into a theology of God is God and I am not. So we're here because we're valuable and we're important. Now some of you might feel, who, me? I can't do anything. What can I do? I'm getting too old to do anything. I got sciatica. What can I do? You know, Jacob did a lot, even with his sciatica. And we all do a lot in our own way, in our own little way. You know, sometimes I meet a person in church when they're coming to communion and they're smiling. Sometimes it's because I smile first, but most of the time it's not. But when they smile, they make me smile. They make me realize that God is good, that God lives within each person, and God smiles on each one of us for who we are. And I think that's the way we got to learn how to be. And it's a matter of a mindset. It's not a mindset. It's a heart set. We got to feel within our heart. We've got to be totally immersed into the goodness of God. It's easy to say it. I believe God. I believe God is good. I believe everybody's good. Yeah. Put it into practice. Let it come from within. Live the way you claim to be lived. Live the way you claim to want to live. It's hard. Just one sidebar here. God's message to us is very simple. You can't be more simple than say, love God above all things and love your neighbor as yourself. It can't be more simple than that. Is it easy? No. But simple and easy are not correlative words or concepts. Because something can be very simple and I don't know how to do it. With all that technical stuff up there, I wouldn't know which button to press. But the point is, somebody does. Thank God. And thank God for everyone who came here. And I got to talk again. I just got to get my mind straightened out here a little bit. It's time for a break. 10:15. Is it 9? I heard you saying that. And if anybody falls asleep, by the way, don't feel bad. My mom used to always fall asleep. And she didn't want to be known to one who fell asleep because that was weak. She didn't want to be weak. And she said, I'm not falling asleep. I wasn't asleep. I was just resting my eyes. So feel free to rest your eyes.